In June of 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin accompanied his family on a camping trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a mountain range rising along the Tennessee-North Carolina border in the southeastern United States. The name Great Smoky Mountains comes from the natural fog that often hangs over the range, appearing as large smoke plumes from a distance. Interestingly, this fog is caused by chemicals emitted from the local flora, chemicals that have a high vapor pressure and easily formed vapors at normal temperature and pressures, yet even haven't heard the scientific explanation behind the phenomenon. Seeing all that fog clinging to the hilltops is a very eerie sight indeed. Hailing from nearby Knoxville, Tennessee, the Martin family had a long-running tradition of celebrating Father's Day by taking camping trips to the Great Smoky Mountains. In 1969 would mark young Dennis's first trip into the woods in the company of his father, older brother, and grandpa. The group drove out to Cades Cove, an isolated valley located in the Tennessee section of the park, then hiked out towards Russell Field, where they set up camping and began preparing for the first night under the stars. The following morning they set off for a place known as a Spencefield, a picturesque highland meadow and popular camping spot which was bisected by the rolling hills and jagged mountain peaks of the Appalachian Trail. When the group arrived at Spencefield, Dennis and his older brothers set off to explore the campsite and reportedly talked to many of the other campers who would pitch their tents nearby. This is how they got talking to a ragtag group made up of other campers' children who made fast friends with the Martin boys. Then his father was pleased to see his son getting along so well with the other kids and having his sons occupied men, the adults could get on with the important task of assembling their four-man tent. Once the task was completed, Dennis was still playing with the group of other kids, and his father says he watched as the group gleefully took up hiding positions from which to playfully ambush a group of approaching adults. When the grown-ups entered the kids' make-believe kill zone, they all jumped out growling and roaring like wild animals as they set upon their laughing parents. All but little Dennis, his father, watched with growing concern as the seconds ticked by and Dennis had yet to emerge from his hiding spot. Eventually he couldn't bear it anymore, and after rising from his camping chair, Dennis's father marched off the spot where he had last seen a 6-year-old son and began calling out his name. But what started out as stern fatherly commands soon degenerated into terrified pleas, and as he continued to call out in desperation, the other families began to realize that something was terribly wrong. Once Dennis's grandpa knew he was missing, he set the group into action, sending one group 2 miles up the Appalachian Trail with his son, while he led another group back towards the Cades Cove Ranger Station, arriving there around 8:30 p.m. that night. Thus began an extensive, well-publicized search and rescue operation in which National Park Service personnel was supplemented by National Guard soldiers and even the units of Green Berets. At the peak of the search operation, more than 1,400 people were operating in the few square miles around Spencefield, but not a single one found anything that could lead them to the missing boy. However, in the aftermath of the operation, the search efforts drew a great deal of criticism from search and rescue experts far and wide, who said the large number of personnel involved potentially obscuring tracks and ground that was already difficult to track over due to heavy rain. Shockingly, a shoe print belonged to that of a child was actually found at one point, but the track was dismissed as belonging to one of the Boy Scouts that was helping with the search later. However, investigators kicked themselves when they found that the tracks were amateur and professional. Believe that Dennis became disoriented whilst looking for a hiding place, maybe even forgetting his way back to camp when he emerged from it. Either way, Dennis then strayed further from the camp and could easily have fallen down one of the many steep slopes and ravines that dotted the area surrounding Spencefield. However, Dennis was wearing a bright red t-shirt when he went missing, not something that would be easy for search and rescue teams to miss. Dennis would have to be completely covered in foliage to remain undetected with that color of shirt, and despite it being feasible due to his small size, the likelihood of that is extremely low. Others are quick to remind us of the presence of black bears in the area, as well as copperhead vipers and feral pigs, all of which would have posed a considerable threat to 6-year-old Martin. Park rangers told investigating police that an underweight bear had been caught in a boar trap in the Spencefield area just 2 weeks earlier. Although the bear was released safely, the incident suggested that it may have been struggling to find enough food, prompting to turn to a less familiar source of food. It, however tragic and brutal the aforementioned theories are, Dennis's father believes something considerably more sinister based on the eyewitness account of one Harold Key, who says he heard a loud scream on the very same afternoon that Dennis disappeared. Dennis's dad firmly believed that his son was kidnapped by an opportunistic predator. Shortly after he heard the scream, Harold Key claimed to have seen a disheveled bearded man with wild unkempt hair fleeing through the woods in an apparent bid to remain undetected by the nearby campers. Harold's family went on to explain that they saw a flash of red on the figure's shoulders, which some believe was actually Dennis himself slung over the shoulder of this mysterious figure as they carried him away. Harold later speculated that the men may have been a moonshiner, explaining his reluctance to be seen despite the report. FBI investigators ultimately dismissed it, saying that as much as Harold meant well, his account was frankly unreliable as his timeline of events were off. But one retired park ranger lamented the failure to properly follow up either the footprints or the sighting of the rough-looking man, arguing that as the location of the sighting was downhill from where Dennis disappeared, it was possible to cover that distance in the time frame, even carrying a child, but that the individual in question would have some impressive strength, stealth, and endurance. So if this is the case, who is this hairy mystery man, this bearded vagrant who is apparently capable of such an impressive physical feat, even if it was in the context of the despicable abduction of a child? Given the lack of investigation into his sighting or his tracks, it seems we might never know. But even if we did get to the bottom of the mystery of a man living in the Appalachian Mountains with a penchant for kidnapping children, I don't think the answers would bring us any solace. Maybe the closure would be worth it, especially for the family, but nightmares can be a high price to pay, and wondering what happened to young Dennis Martin can give even the most hardened true crime reader some very sleepless nights. In October 1999, a 3-year-old boy vanished without a trace on a Colorado hiking trail. What searchers found 4 years later would raise more questions than answers, and leave investigators completely baffled. This is the unexplained disappearance of Jared Atadero. On October 2, 1999, 3-year-old Jared Atadero was hiking Colorado's Big South Trail with a Christian singles group and his 6-year-old sister. His father, Alan, who owned the nearby Poudre River Resort, trusted the group to watch his kids. Jared loved running ahead, always staying about 100 feet in front, well within sight. But at 11:30 a.m., he rounded a corner on the trail, and was never seen again. When the adults turned that same corner moments later, there was no sign of the little boy in the beige coat. He had simply vanished. Within hours, a massive search operation launched. Over 200 personnel deployed, including National Guard, Air Force helicopters, dive teams, tracking dogs, and professional searchers. They scoured the area for 8 straight days, 24 hours a day. But the search took a tragic turn when a rescue helicopter crashed through the pine canopy, severely injuring rescuer Mark Sheets. Despite the setback, teams pressed on. After combing every inch of the trail, they found nothing. Not a single clue. The search was suspended, and Jared's case went cold. Fast forward to June 2003, nearly 4 years later. 2 hikers, Rob Osborne and Gareth Watts, were exploring off-trail when they stumbled upon something impossible: children's clothing. Brown fleece jacket, blue sweatpants turned inside out, 2 small shoes, pristine, as if freshly removed. They looked brand new, despite being exposed to Colorado's harsh elements for 4 years. Police confirmed it. This was Jared's clothing. But here's where it gets disturbing. The clothes were found 500 feet off the trail, in a rocky area 2,000 feet higher in elevation. Terrain a 3-year-old could never have reached alone. To this day, Jared Adadero's disappearance remains unsolved. How did a 3-year-old's clothing end up 500 feet off trail in an area impossible for him to reach? Why was there no physical evidence of an animal attack? Removed his clothing. The Big South Trail holds its secrets, and some mysteries may never be solved. What do you think happened to Jared? Share your theories in the comments below. Imagine hiding during a school lockdown, only to realize you were hiding right next to the person everyone was trying to escape from. This is one student's terrifying true story. It was last period. I hated history class, so I decided to ditch and hide in the bathroom stall at the back of the school, the one nobody ever used. I was just sitting there, playing games on my phone, when suddenly, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. I didn't think much of it. We had drills all the time. Then, all the lights shut off at once. The AC stopped humming. The entire school went pitch black. That's when I knew this wasn't a drill. They never cut the power during drills. I texted my friend, "What's going on?" His response made my blood run cold. "Dude, where are you? It's a real lockdown. Everyone's asking where you are." He told me to hide. But I was already hiding, in the worst possible place. 5 minutes later, my friend texts again, "There's a kid with a knife. He's banging on classroom doors trying to get in." My classroom and this bathroom, same floor. I turned off my phone, held my breath. Then I heard it, running footsteps. The bathroom door creaked open. Someone walked in, straight to the stall next to mine, and shut the door. My heart was pounding. I whispered, "Who's in here?" A shaky voice replied, "I'm just looking for a place to hide." I heard there was a lockdown. He sounded my age. I didn't know what to think, so we just sat there in silence. Finally, the announcement came, "All students exit through the front doors. Police are waiting outside." I rushed out of my stall, but the guy next to me didn't move. "You coming?" I asked. Yeah man, just give me a couple minutes." That was weird, but I left anyway. As I walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. Another text. "The guy with the knife tried robbing a gas station, stabbed people, then ran to the school to blend in. Cops say he's still inside, hiding in the back of the school." I ran. Full sprint. Burst through those front doors and told the police everything. They searched the bathroom. It was empty, but the window, shattered. He'd broken through and escaped. I had been hiding in a stall, right next to the guy everyone was trying to hide from. The armed intruder, the one who'd stabbed people. And I had no idea. To this day, he's never been caught. I still can't believe I talked to him. Asked him who he was. He lied. Right to my face. Sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what you know, it's what you don't. Have you ever experienced a school lockdown? Share your story in the comments. Like and subscribe for more horror stories.